Hey everyone, welcome to After Hours.
Yay!
What kind of yay was that? Get it together.
I am. We're doing something a little different. So I was like watching the things like what's going on there? Okay. Let's do that again. Go ahead.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to After Hours. We're super excited that you're here with us today.
Woo woo! Is that better?
Much better. I appreciate that. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Yes. We are super excited. Yeah. We have a great show and great topic planned for you this evening.
Yes, you asked. We listened.
Yes, you asked quite a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a few times.
Yep. In our little survey, you asked. And so we listened, and we are excited that we have an award-winning quilter and a judge here, Linda V. Taylor.
Yes.
It's going to be so much fun, right?
Yeah, your microphone cord is killing me. I'm doing that. All right, that should fix it.
Is that fixing it?
That should fix it.
Oh my goodness.
My OCD is kicking in. Well, thank you all so much for being here once again. As always, make sure you subscribe to our channel. So it's going to be right down there at the bottom right-hand corner.
Yep.
After you click on that subscribe button, make sure you click on the little bell that shows up so you can get notified whenever we post new videos or whenever we go live here at After Hours.
Ding, ding.
So,
yes.
Ding, ding.
Well, you don't pause for me to say it after the bell anymore.
I see.
It's like, come on, read me.
No.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm excited. This is a really good topic, that all of you got, or a lot of you guys had asked for, and we're so thankful that we were able to get Linda Taylor to come on live and answer your questions. We're going to start off and ask her a few questions, let more people get on, and then we'll start feeding those questions to her. But lots of good tips.
Yes, she does have a lot of good tips for y'all. So all the way from Star Valley, Wyoming, we have Linda V. Taylor.
Woohoo!
Hi, Linda.
Hi, everybody.
How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for asking me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, we love having you here. And that beautiful quilt in the background. Is that Birds in Paradise that I see?
That is the back of Birds in Paradise.
Oh, gosh. One of my favorite quilts that you've ever done.
Yeah, that's like my favorite.
Yeah. Absolutely beautiful.
I always said when I would see that in person,
yes,
when it was here,
beautiful in person,
that I would get like a double-sided glass in my house when I had a really huge house one day, and then just hang it in there so I could look at both sides. Well, I know, but I was
steal it from Linda.
No, it was going to be like maybe one day I could afford it.
I see. I see. Yeah. Okay.
It's just so beautiful. If you haven't seen it in person, oh my goodness,
Birds
it's
in Paradise
insane.
is stunning in person.
So thanks for being here. We're going to start off by asking you a few questions to kind of get the juices flowing.
Okay.
So again, for new people that haven't seen you or talked to you or listened to you before, how long have you been quilting?
Long arm quilting is what you're talking about. 1993 is when I started. So, it's almost 2023, just a couple more years. So I guess 28 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a long time.
You're not even that old, are you?
I wasn't even born yet. No.
So I know because worked with you over the years that you've got a galore of awards, like a lot of them. We have a lot of them hanging in here still, thankfully. What was your first award? First time winning an award?
The very first time I ever won an award, I entered into the Texas State Fair, which is in Dallas. And I won a blue ribbon and, $5, I think, maybe $8. You don't win a lot of money, but I was so thrilled, and it just boosted my confidence so much. And so then I entered the next year and won another blue ribbon. And then I started entering in the Dallas show and some of the other shows. And so then I quit entering in the state fair because I felt like, I was at a different level and I didn't want to take those ribbons away from people who need them so badly to boost their confidence. So
for sure, definitely.
Yeah. But that's where I won my very first ribbon. I think it's hanging in your case there somewhere.
It is
probably,
actually.
Yeah.
No, it is. It is. So that you brought up a good point. Somebody beginning to think about they want to put a quilt in the show. They're scared. They're nervous. What type of show would you have them start at? Guild show, big show. What are some tips?
Oh, guild shows are wonderful. Guild shows are really fabulous. And they know some of the members and everybody gets together, and that sort of thing. So it's a friendly way to start entering your quilts. We have to maybe talk about what is the reason for a quilt show.
Yes.
the reason is to see everybody's work in art and see what they're doing and to inspire you to do something more maybe than you're doing or better, or just inspire you just because you're like, wow, these people, this is really cool to, I can do this. I don't have to be an artist to cut fabric up and sew it back together. Or, I mean, you have to start somewhere. And so I don't, it's not like you go in to be a professional to start that way. You want to go in and just enjoy. And I am never embarrassed to see my quilt hanging in a show with or without a ribbon. I just gives you a thrill to see your quilt hanging there and to see other people enjoy it. Maybe stand there and hear what they have to say, because they're always positive. The crowds are so wonderful. So it's just a camaraderie, I think.
Yeah, I think it's always when I entered my first quilt, and I think you forced me to enter my first quilt.
I did, yeah.
Because I was freaking out. I was so scared. I didn't want anybody to look at it wrong or that, because as you and I both know, Linda, when you sit over that machine and you're quilting that quilt over and over again, you see every single mistake that you make.
You know every little part. You know every part, and you're like, this just isn't good enough.
Right.
And actually, it is good enough. It's more than good enough. It's just where everybody comes together to see what you've been doing. Yeah. That's it. That's what really shows are for. So, but we are talking about competition tonight, but that's not really what they're for. We want it to be a friendly, comfortable time. And hopefully the judges will give you some constructive criticism if it's needed, just so you can learn to be better. Right. And you don't need to be afraid of the judges. They're just people like me. They're just like you.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's just these little things should never, those fears or that inner saboteur that you have should never hinder you from entering in those quilt shows, because you're going to gain nothing but experience from doing that.
Yeah,
regardless of which way it goes.
Rick was reminding me, I got to tell you this little story. Rick was reminding me that in the Salt Lake show, the teachers all give a ribbon, and he was teaching maintenance in the Salt Lake show. And that was a HMQS. So he was supposed to give a ribbon. So he found a quilt that he loved and he gave a ribbon, but he didn't realize it wasn't in the competition. It was somebody didn't want it to be judged. They were afraid, but they did enter their quilt and he loved it. And that lady found him later and just said, I just can't believe you gave me a ribbon. I was so afraid to enter, because I just didn't want to feel judged. And but he loved it. So, that's just kind of a nice story about being
taking
able
that chance.
Yeah, exactly. So they just want to see your quilt.
That's true.
Alrighty.
So just while we are at Talking Tour, please put your questions in the comments. We want to be able to ask questions that you might have thought about. You might have entered into the show, thinking about entering into the show. Definitely put your comments in the feed.
Yes.
So Linda, how long have you been judging quilts at quilt shows?
The first show I judged was in MQX, and it was in Illinois, and it was probably 1998, the 1900s.
That's gonna be
way
funny.
back then.
1900s.
Before 9/11, before the pandemic, good old days.
It all got crazy. Yeah. So tell us why we're waiting. Corey, actually, let's jump up to the feed. Let's go to the judges' score sheet, maybe.
Yeah,
and give some ideas.
I know, Linda, you have a picture of this that I sent you. I was playing around on Google, and all of you can do the same as well. Hop on Google and type in like a quilt judge's score sheet or something like that, and you'll be surprised how many you come up with. But they all kind of barrel down to the exact same thing. And this one that we found was from Vermont. And the first thing is how this is broken down, where it talks about, I guess we can just go through this, the visual impact of this. It talks about, is the piecing effective? Is it hanging straight and flat? Is it clean? No markings, threads, stains, pet hairs, etc. So Linda, kind of talk us through this score sheet, and you can just kind of summarize it up with all the score sheets that you've seen. I know they're all a little different at different shows, but explain kind of how this all works and kind of the tips for viewers on how they can kind of use these from this score sheet to apply to their show quilts to make it catch the judge's eye faster.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this sheet that you have is, again, pretty typical. Some of them are even a lot less. And they judge on points on this one. I don't like the point system. I'd rather put pluses or minuses on certain things. But I think the viewers need to know that I have never judged a show where the quilts were actually hung. That is very unusual.
Oh.
When you judge generally before the show so they can put up the winners, of course, and they're all flat. They're all in their category, stacked flat. And oftentimes they will have the people who are helpers, which, bless their hearts, holding those quilts all day is hard. They'll come by and they'll show you that category, each one. Just bring it in and hold it up so you can see it. So it's the overall visual effect right away, and the front and the back. And right at that time, you can almost tell which, like if you have 10 quilts, you can almost tell which 5 are going to be really competing.
Okay.
You will judge each one individually, but you can tell the ones that are going to probably rise to the top of that category. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So then you start judging and you go through the different criteria and kind of check that or give it points and stuff. You look at the binding, you look at the back, you look at the stitches and the other things that are on here, proportion. But the ones that really stood out to you are the ones that you take a little more time on. People need to realize that in a judging room where you have 400 quilts and it's going to take you 2 days for 3 judges to go through those, you only have about 2 minutes per quilt. So I know everybody thinks that, you're going to pick across each little stitch and you're going to, find this and find that. But that's really hard to do in the time that you have. So, and you can tell that in a show when you walk around, you can see this was in that category with that quilt. But of course, I can see why this one was a little bit more outstanding. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah.
And sometimes you're looking at them and you're going, why didn't that one win? Everybody likes that one better than the one that won. And so in that case, they probably found some real things that were definitely not, that needed some help, on the other quilt that you can't see. So, all right.
Well, we have a good question of when you spoke about binding. Somebody right over here, Leanne said, bindings, should you single fold or double fold? What is preferred by the judges?
Single fold or double fold? You mean taking your binding and double and then
one layer, I guess doubling it up and it's 2 layers so it's thicker?
Oh.
Is there a preferred
This is a really good question, actually. The durability of the quilt is the longevity of the quilt is better if it's double. But in the last quilt show that I judged in person, I've judged some online, but that's totally different. The ones that I judged, there's no hard, fast rules. You can't find a rule book. Corey, did you find a rule book when you were looking?
I Googled everywhere I could for a rule book and it didn't pop up anywhere.
Yep. And that's because the rules kind of change. They're just rules in our heads, really. Right. And so they kind of changed because the last show there were a lot of singles. Some of them were fused on the art quilts. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa. And but they won big prizes because, they're beautiful.
Right.
And so you can do anything you want. Durability, and probably the most proper way would be double.
Okay.
But you know what? Some of them they're backing, they're facing them too. So they're quilting them and then they're facing them and turning them. And so they have a false back on them.
What's a false back?
Okay, so when you quilt, you're quilting with 3 layers generally. You're batting, your top, and your lining, or your backing, whichever you call it. But if they had a really bad tension, haha, and they didn't want the judges to see that because they want to enter it, then they will face the whole thing and then turn it, and then just stitch across that, just whip that shut. So the back is just fabric. And I don't think that's fair for any quilt show, because I guess personally would discount those a little bit in my mind, because I know why they did it,
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair to judge against somebody who's really worked really hard and has great tension and wanted to make the back look just as beautiful as the front. Like this is the back of the quilt, right here.
Yeah.
Right.
I want my back to look great. So so bindings. Let's talk about bindings while we're here, shall we?
Okay. Let's do that.
One of the things that we definitely do check when we're looking at the binding is if they're neat and straight, and they can be a hand binding or a machine binding. There's no rule that says a hand is better than machine, but it needs to be applied correctly. And the handwork that people do on the back, they'll put it on the front, then they bring it around the back, then they do the handwork. That's considered a hand binding. Those stitches need to be close together, pretty much hidden, and no gaps in between. So you wouldn't want to catch like a toe, and pull out the whole binding.
Right.
So that's why it just needs to be secure. And so maybe a judge would say something like, binding stitches should be tight and secure.
That's a good question.
They're not going to say, in fact, I just had a neighbor the other day that was here, and they were talking about putting the quilt that I had done in this local little fair here. She said, I can't put anything in because last time the judge said your binding is terrible. And I was like shocked. That's not helpful to her at all.
No.
Why did she say that? What could she do to improve? No, all you do is tell them what it should be, or your quilt should lie flat, or those are the kind of comments you should be getting. They're not there to judge and say how awful you're doing. Nobody wants to enter that show.
Right, definitely.
What about, so when you're saying laying flat, I mean, this is kind of probably a common question, or not a common question, but a no-brainer. But what about, do they look at how square it is? Like how when it's, well, you're seeing it laying down most of the time. Can you tell how square it is?
When you get down to like the 2 or 3 quilts, which one is first, second, or third, if there is time, you can fold those quilts to see if the corners are even, if any of them are dog-eared. You pretty much see that though, just having them lay there.
Right.
Got it.
So yeah, they say they should lay flat and the corners should be straight, not dog-eared. And I have never seen a judge discount any corners that weren't stitched down. The binding corners, as you turn and you make the miter, they used to say those have to be, absolutely stitched. And I know that my partner, Sherry Meineke Johnson, always stitches them and wants them to be perfect, but I've never seen them being discounted because the corners weren't stitched or weren't going the same direction or whatever. That's getting really, really picky. So
nitty-gritty.
So how do they look at the actual stitching? Like does it matter if it was, say, 10 stitches, 10 SPI here, and maybe looks like 16 SPI here because it was a little tinier? Is all that looked at? Does it have to be even stitching, or can it just be?
It has to go with the rest of the quilt. If this area is done this way, then this area has to be done this way. Things, again, have changed a little, Diana. It used to be that they'd say, well, this, and they would actually have a tape measure and get it out and measure, see how many stitches to the inch and all this. We don't do that. This area might be bigger. This one might be littler, but is it consistent with the quilt? Do we know why they did that? Because this design is so tiny and this one is larger, and it's just consistency.
Right.
And are they even, where they belong? Are they even? And, are there any, problems, knots, and stuff like that.
Right. Kind of looking at the density of the quilting, making sure it flows
Right.
properly. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, it looks like we have another question. Corey, you want to pop that over?
So we've got one. This is from Leanne again. She's talking about backings. If you have to seam your back, should the fabric be matching with its repeat so you can't tell, kind of where it's going, or should you be concerned about the patterns matching? Does a judge really look at that and dock it off?
No.
Oh, there you go. That was an easy answer.
I do not. Are you kidding? When I started with comforters, so I'm very, very good at matching patterns, but they have to buy sometimes a lot more fabric if they want to do that. That depends on how much you want to put into your quilt. And I think it's wonderful if they want to do that. I think it's fantastic. Am I going to dock them off if they don't? No. Am I going to dock them off if the seam isn't in the middle or two on each side? No. I'm judging the front of the quilt.
Gotcha.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's good.
So what qualifies, I guess, talking about front of the quilt, what qualifies a quilt to be considered like a two-sided quilt, like Birds in Paradise at this point? Does the person entering in the quilt say, I haven't entered in a lot of quilts in a while, say, I want this to be a two-sided quilt, or do judges say this should be a two-sided quilt? We're going to show both sides.
The judges don't have a lot to say about that.
Gotcha.
It would be the guild.
Oh, okay.
And they could say, we will, they can recommend, this would be a really great quilt to show, but the guild people will know about that because there's always, those organizers are always usually in the judging room, etc. So they're the ones that decide that, or the show, because you've got to realize that they only have limited space. And sometimes they can't show, unless it's the big winner, they can't show both sides of a quilt because on the other side, they need another quilt. So it's just show by show. So you better make sure the front of your quilt looks really good.
All right, we got another question from Millie.
So this is actually a really good question, and I know this is something that you could talk really well about. Is judging quilts free motion and computerized in the exact same category? How does that stagger out? I know each
this has been such been a real confusing 30 years I've been through. At first they said long arm, if you did it on a long arm machine, you can't be in a show, or you have to have your own category, or if it's two people, you have to have your own category. And it has just evolved and evolved. And and then they're like, if it's computerized, you have to do it in a different category. I think, and people that have computerized machines can tell you it is a ton of work. So I'm just predicting that there's just going to be, if I can see applique and piecing being separated, some of these others, you're just going to have to hone your skills on long arm quilting, because you're going to be competing with the computers. I don't know what to tell you. Just look for the shows that you want to enter if that have computers as being separate. But my work is almost both, always. I use the computer and then I do a lot of freehand. So where am I? Is that going to be a new category? I don't know. It's true. The more you throw at this industry, and it takes a while to catch up. I mean, it just takes like 5 years for him to catch up and alter things, get feedback from everybody, and to make new categories. So, yeah, just watch where you enter if you're afraid of that. But don't be afraid of that. You're long arm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and maybe just give your feedback to the show and the guild.
That is exactly
more people that give the feedback.
Yeah.
Get on the committee. Get on the show committee. Give your input. I mean, that's what we did, and it worked. But it took years to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question, Millie. Is there any other questions? Do you guys have any other questions that you want to throw up? And while we're waiting on that, Corey.
So while
we haven't even started the quilts.
So we haven't started the quilts yet. We're not ready there. Hold on. She's already trying to dismiss us both. Linda,
no,
we'll send her off, and we'll have the show to ourselves.
I wasn't thinking that. I just forgot about that.
So while people are dropping in their questions, I have, and Linda has yet to see any of these. I have a few different quilts, both of ours and yours, just to give some things that you would look for from a judging standpoint, like where does your eye go? Now, all of these quilts are hung up, so it's going to be a little nicer for you. But just to have these, just so you can kind of see. So we're going to bring up this, and let's take a look at this one getting started out. What's the first thing you would start looking for when it comes to judging?
Okay, have you got is this the back on the side, or is this the front too?
Both
of those are front pictures?
This is all front. This is all front.
Okay, well, I look at the overall picture, the overall appearance is appealing. The colors are nice. They're all complementary. It's hard to see how the pattern actually complements what's going on, because okay. Oh, and you've got crystals on it. I love that. Okay. There are some. Can you see the distortion in some of the areas where the quilting is not? So there are, I would say it's not as well distributed as I would like to see for a show. Anyway.
Good.
Okay. So the density of the quilting kind of throws off some of the piecing.
The density, it's just not consistent with the density. There's some larger areas that are distorted.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I like that.
Okay.
Now when it looks at how the quilt is hanging here, you see a little bit of a drift in that. Is that something you start to dock into when it comes to squareness?
But we don't see him hanging, Corey.
That's right. That's right.
You don't see him hanging. So if they had used Linda's Choice in that quilt, then it wouldn't do that. It would be
for
flat.
batting.
And I can say it does not have Linda's Choice in there. It's
There
my
you
quilt. So yeah.
This one doesn't.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, this is a beautiful quilt. I'll have to tell you a little background on that quilt. Sherry, my Nikki Johnson, brought me that quilt. And if you saw the picture of it before it was quilted, you wouldn't even recognize it. There's very little applique on. She got tired of orange and green. She just dumped it off. She said, I'm tired. I don't want to do anymore. And I said, well, fun. I'll just enjoy doing it. And it took me 2 days to do this quilt. And it won some big prizes. It was so fun to do. And when we finished, we called it Quilt TV. And I just put a whole bunch of designs on that were brand new to me. I made stuff up, and you see that feather is the feather in a feather. And then these things coming out from the sides look like that TV pattern, and that other part looks like an antenna. So if I'd have known it was going to be in so many shows, I would have taken a little more time probably, but this is the best of everything when you can just quilt your heart out, and it turns out to be so beautiful. That Indian feather on the outside is probably the thing that makes it so outstanding.
So we got a great question that's popped up, and we'll get back to a few here. But this one, since you talked about Sherry, should credit be given separately for piecing and quilting if it's done by different people? How does that work?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely credit should be given. And this is what is happening now in some of the shows. It's just the quilt owner. And so they're not giving credit to, and that was a big issue in the 90s. We never even got our name in the quilt. And then now I think most shows want to know who, the two different people. If it's done by two different people, it's collaboration, and they should rejoice together. So how they split the money, if you win money, that's up to them. And in fact, some shows in the early 2000s actually started giving ribbons in the long arm show, gave ribbons to both, to the piecer and to the quilter. But I think they don't do that anymore. They just give one ribbon. So you decide who it belongs to.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, let's go to the next picture.
Let's take a look at the next one.
Oh, that is beautiful. Oh, very striking. The visual impact is amazing. Your eye goes everywhere. You want to look at each little cube and the colors. And the border is so dramatic and just complements that quilt. I can't see the quilt. Oh, okay. I can't see the quilting in the black, but the quilting in the blocks is beautiful and very appropriate for that design. Oh, I see. Yeah, they continue to do their geometry, continue to do that theme. And this is a beautiful quilt. This should be in a show.
Well, this was my first one that I ever entered into a show, so thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. I didn't know that. Haven't seen it. It's nice. You pieced it?
No, my grandmother pieced it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Very pretty.
So good. Good question.
Yeah.
Or good review on that one. Okay, let's go. So this actually brings up a good topic. I have a little demo planned here, but I'd like for you to talk about starts and stops when it comes to machine quilting, and talk about their importance when it comes from a judging standpoint when you start to get down to those really tiny details.
Well, if we are really looking at that quilt, now you can see that there's some little bobbles here and there where they stopped and started, or possibly something was wrong with the tension. I don't know. That is a distraction. So they would say starts and stops should be invisible. That's what I would say. And they're not invisible. So you don't have to do your starts and your stops. You know, you don't have to bury your thread. A lot of people do if they want to. They're welcome to do that. But there are ways to do that by machine that make it invisible. So you just have to know how. Aren't you going to show them, Corey? Hello? Are we still on?
Yep, we are. We were working on getting a camera over here. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. I just read one of these things from Leanne, and she said, my guild doesn't give credit to the quilter. The quilter gets paid. So what? Of course we get paid. We bought the machine. We know how to do it. And we did it so well that the prize was won. I mean, you should still get credit. I don't care how much you got for it. That's my opinion, though. So if you don't like it, don't enter that guild.
Alrighty.
Okay, so let's take...
Corey's going to show how to kind of bury such.
So yeah, I just want to talk about when it comes to those starts and stops. I think it's always good for people to see how to bury threads and how to take care of covering up those starts and stops from a hand standpoint. Golly, this is backwards from what I'm used to. There we go. So it'd be really cool just to show you that. So I did 2 different colors of thread here just so you could see exactly what I'm working with. But I've got my threads pulled from right here. I didn't do a tie off on the stitch. And I've just got both of them up here. And Joanne Knight actually taught me how to bury my thread, so shout out to her. But I'm just going to tie these threads twice. I'm going to make 1 knot and then take another knot, just like that. Easy to do. And then I'm going to take both of these thread tails, and I love the John James needles. I don't know if I can get that in focus, but they're easy threading needles, and they have a little slit right on the top, and you can just pop your threads right through them because I don't like threading a needle. So I can put those threads, and there's that little slit, and I can just drop it down. If I can get it lined up properly. There we go, and it snaps right in. So there it's threaded already for me. And then I'm just going to take my needle and go right back into where I tied that knot. And I like to continue it along the line of stitching. That just gives it a nice, more easy appeal. And then I can pop it back out of the top fabric, pull it through, pop those threads out of my needle. Just like that, and then pull these threads, and I give it a little bit of a tug. Can you see me? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I give it a little bit of a tug, and then I take my scissors, cut, brush it with my nail, and it's like it was never there.
Huh.
Good job.
Good job.
Thank
That's
you.
good. Okay.
So I thought that was a good thing to show real quick, just on how easy that could be done.
To bury.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to move the camera back, so give us just a second.
You're not going to show us how to do it by machine?
No.
Well, I can give you some hints. You never want to start and stop in a corner or an intersection. Always do it in another place on the line. And as you start, you don't really need the little stitches if you're coming back to that same place. But when you come back to that place, then you just take 2 or 3 little stitches on top of your other stitches and then trim everything. And machine quilters do that all over the world, and it works great. If we cannot, as a judge, if we cannot see where you stopped and started, we don't care how you did it.
Oh, that's good, I guess. Go up just a little bit, Corey. Sorry.
Is that good?
Yep.
Okay.
This platform, we couldn't have like the multiple
cameras running at one time.
Let's see. We have another good question about stitching the ditch. Let's bring that one over here.
Okay. You should stitch in the ditch on all custom quilts. I don't care if they're entered or not, but that's up to you. I know a lot of people have issues with stitching in the ditch because they think it takes time and it's harder, but it is so worth it. And I have seen so many quilts, and we lay them out, and the other judges, I think they like me in the group because they judge so many of the other things, but the machine quilting still has a little bit of a just a mystery to it. And they're like, why is this quilt, when it's done so nicely, why is this quilt so distorted? And I'll say, they didn't stitch in the ditch. And they still could. They could still stitch in the ditch and send it off to another show. But stitching in the ditch stabilizes the quilt. And if you see that seam that's just rising up with the seam on top, should be stitched down, it distorts those seams. I don't know what to tell you. It just makes the quilt so much better and organizes it on the back of the quilt.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Got it.
We got another question from Patricia.
Okay. Oh no, that is not what I wanted to do. Hello. There we go. So should you overlap the stitching at the end?
Are you talking about a back tack? Is that what she's talking about?
I'm gonna assume yes on that. Yeah.
No. When you get to the end, you stop maybe between 1/8 and 1/4 away from the end, and then take tiny little stitches. And when I say tiny, I mean like 25 stitches to the inch, just so tiny they're right next to each other. And that's all you need to do at the end. You don't need to do backtracking at all.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
Good.
Do you have some other questions? They going off. We kind of got off the sheet there because we've had so many good questions. But
what about my sheet?
Yeah, just other things. Precision of work and top. I guess we got that. Quality of the quilting. Binding edges.
Yeah, while you're reading through that, for everyone that was asking in the comments about the sheet that I've used, it's not there currently, but it will be in the description below, the link afterwards, after we're done with this, so you can at least go see what we're going off of.
Yeah. It's not ours. We just borrowed it online.
Pulled it from somewhere online. So a big portion of this, 2 big portions of this sheet are workmanship and design.
Mm-hmm.
And workmanship has 5 more points than design does. And with workmanship, you're looking at the precision of the work, top and back, the quality of the quilting and needlework, and then the binding and the binding and the edging, which we've talked about. So, Linda, you want to elaborate a little bit, I guess, on design? I know you've talked a little bit about it, but how that kind of plays a huge factor into why this has majority of the points.
I mean, like those quilts, when you put them up there, how dynamic are they? Does everything go together? Does it pull it all together so that it's just delightful to look at? Or have they got you going in every direction? And almost you could take any person off the street, whether they were a quilter or not, show them a couple of quilts, and they could tell you which one they liked better because it's so appealing to the eye.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of people that have design backgrounds and art and all of that. I don't, but I know what I like or what I don't like, and why something is off, like just like weird on the quilt, or if it just is so beautiful to look at.
Well, let's throw another quilt in there.
Let's throw another quilt up.
More questions.
And let's take a look at it.
Oh, I wanted to say one other thing.
Oh, go ahead.
On that sheet, there also has, right from the beginning, pet hair and stuff like that. I actually have been to 2 or 3 shows judging where the quilt didn't smell good. I mean, you could tell it was that quilt, and also pet hair. And the judges just practically throw it underneath the table. They're like, I'm not even going to go there. Just tell them pet hair is distracting, and that's it. They don't even judge it again. So be very, very careful with pets. And
Okay.
that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
Good point. So let's take a look at this one. So what do you think here?
Is that quilted?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll zoom in for you. There it goes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So more of an overall edge-to-edge design on this one from what I could see.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it could have been really defined with custom quilting, but I don't know what it is. Okay, follow the yellow blocks around with me.
Mm-hmm.
See, they're just kind of all, it looks like they turn.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And there's some that are distracting. It's a distraction from the overall effect that I think the piecer was trying to achieve.
Gotcha.
Got it. So try to be more consistent with your pattern then, so it has good eye appeal.
Yeah, as you look at it overall, you're like, okay, but it just looks somewhat unorganized, possibly. The colors are beautiful. I can't see the quilting in the black part on the outer edges and stuff. So anyway, the piecing on this one would probably not get high marks.
Okay. All right. So that's a good one. All right.
Yep.
So let's go. Let's answer a question real quick.
Yeah.
So Linda, let's throw up a question for you. Is it possible to add anything such as micro quilting after a photo is taken of the quilt and been sent for preview to the show to be judged?
No, that would be illegal.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Now, if you want to get it back and do that and then take a picture and send it to another show, that's fine. But the quilt has to be completely finished. That is one of the, things that, I mean, that's not fair. You'd have people sending quilts that weren't even near finished because they hope to get it finished for the show. And then the show is left if they can't get it finished with an empty space, etc. So that's pretty firm in the shows. They would know that picture didn't have that quilting in it.
Okay.
Got it.
Don't do that.
And then we've got another one here from Debbie. For computerized quilting, do you ever or never start and end on the physical quilt?
Oh, I'm not sure. Well, of course you have to start and end. You mean on for edge to edge?
I'm thinking for edge to edge on this one. That's what I'm thinking here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. For edge to edges, it's better if you start off the edge, go off the edge. Now, of course, your thread can break or you run out of thread. You have to start and stop in the middle and do those correctly. But you don't ever want to see that on the edge of the quilt if it's an edge to edge. Edge to edges are hardly ever in a show, but I think they should be. I hope that some of the shows will have categories for those because there's good and bad edge to edge. If there's big gaps between the patterns.
Yeah.
Or they just are uneven that way, or they got to the end of the quilt and made it a little smaller to fit, or there's and people who don't know a lot about the computerized quilting probably wouldn't know how to judge those as competently as having somebody there that has been a long-arm quilter. But that's a really good point. Don't just start off, because they can even in the batting, I mean, they're going to cut it and bind it anyway. It's going to be sewn over. It's fine. It's not going anywhere.
All right. Good one. Okay. So let's bring back up another quilt.
Oh, I recognize this one.
I bet you do. So talk me through like from a judging standpoint on this.
Well, obviously this person was very brave. to use red thread on the white, and it's a beautiful pattern. It's one of Irina Bloom's patterns, and the heart looks very appropriately quilted. It is definitely stitched in the ditch because it's nice and flat. And if you get closer up, you can see that even in the white areas where you can't see red thread, they have all been quilted with white thread. So the consistency in the quilting is there. So it's a great quilt. I never entered it, but it's a nice quilt.
Alrighty. Okay. I think I've got one or two more.
Yep.
Let me see.
See what we got, and we'll finish up.
Get this. There it goes. Okay,
Yep, here's
here we
another
go.
one.
Oh, that's really pretty. That's really pretty. Is this an overall pattern? I'm assuming that it is.
So it's the same design, but it's looks like it's
Repeated?
done in rows, like a point to point
Okay. Okay.
to follow the tie dye.
This is so appropriate for this quilt. I mean, it is a perfect design to put on this quilt because of all the kind of zigzaggy look, and it softens the quilt. I love the crystals. That just makes it so delightful to me. This one would be a great quilt. I can't tell if it lays flat. It looks like it would.
I can
Looks
tell
like
you that it does.
It's kind of a bigger quilt, but yeah, it's really well done. So ain't nothing wrong with this one.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
All right, go
Score
me.
number 2.
Yay.
Just depends on the competition.
I
Yeah.
know. All
All
right.
right, this is our last one.
Broken Star. I love Broken Stars, and you can put such beautiful designs in those light areas. The inner border is so well done, brings out all the colors that are in the star. It looks like it's well pieced. Of course, we really do look at the piecing in the corners and the intersections on piecing. So you want to make sure that those are sharp and clean. We call them clean quilts. Oh, look how clean this quilt is. It's just so beautifully pieced. The quilting is appropriate, the quilting designs. I think this is a beautiful quilt. I can't tell if they did a design in that inner border on those rectangles.
So that brings up a good question, actually. That's why I put this one in here. This one was not quilted in that design rectangle inner border here. It was more of like a puff, like a trapunto.
Unless you want that effect, probably a judge would say the inner border is distorted.
Okay.
You know, quilting the inner border would handle distortion.
Okay. Really good tip there.
Good tip there.
Yeah, really good tip.
Because we get asked that sometimes when people bring their quilt tops in here, and they want to know, should we quilt there? So that's a really good. Now we know.
Well, the rest of the quilt is quilted an awfully lot. I mean, look at it, and then you leave that border like that. It looks like they forgot.
Got it.
Okay. All right.
And it can still be quilted.
There you go. Okay.
That was
Well,
awesome.
that's awesome.
I liked that.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, like one of the articles and I'll read it verbatim. One of the articles that I read online is that entering your quilt into a show is an amazing opportunity to have a disinterested party provide input on how to improve your technical quilting skills. You can take those comments and help increase your quilting library of things. I thought that was very to read disinterested party. That made me laugh. But it's true. It's someone that has no ties to you as a person, and families all smiles and, oh, your quilt's so beautiful, I love it. But have someone to actually go through your quilt and pick out those things, and you can take from that and learn from that. I think it's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, it is. Well, awesome. That was great. Great information. Thanks, Linda, so much for joining us and giving us all kinds of input. And hopefully the viewers got a lot of good information. If you're thinking about putting a quilt in or you just aren't quite sure, Linda would say go for it, right?
Definitely.
Yes, that's how you grow. That's how you learn. And it's how somebody pats you on the back. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect. Well, okay. Linda, we want to thank you so much. I know our viewers thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Always a pleasure.
We will let you get back to the amazing quilting that you do, and we will see you next time here on After Hours.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See ya. Oh my gosh.
That was
that was a ton of information. And those little tiny things.
Yeah.
Those little tiny things like the border being being quilted in because it looks distorted.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought
or
about
the
that.
quilting being appropriate for that type of piecing. It's those things that you don't really think about, but that's what they're looking for. That's the exact thing. She called it right from the bat.
And the overall look and how it works together as a quilt. You know, so
the
that's
density
important.
of it's amazing.
The density. Yeah. Cool.
I love that.
All righty.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here on After Hours. As always, we love having you here. We love being a part of your Thursday nights. We will see you next week, and we want to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day that's coming up. This Monday. That's coming up Monday. And we will see you all next Thursday here on After Hours. Bye.